All right, guys. So the last video I talked about something I'd admit that was a mistake for 18 years, the entire course of my training life, and that was diet and how big of a role diet plays in things. And to continue on with this, I am now 209 pounds, 95 kilos in the morning. And when I started this training cycle and eating this way and all that after the 100-mile race attempt, I was 196.6 pounds. So roughly 12 and a half pounds gained since then. Things are going very well. But another thing I want to touch on, some other things that I've really changed my mind about recently, and this is a big one. So this is more applicable to training, obviously. So diet's huge, getting in enough protein, eating the right foods, things like that. That's going to play a huge role in your progress, especially as a drug-free lifter. The other one, though, that I've really changed my mind about is, throughout much of my training career and over the years, and if you watch Instagram, which I don't pay any attention to anymore, as far as what other lifters are doing, outside of my clients and the guys at my gym, outside of that, you'll often see that many lifters train with a super high frequency on the main lifts. I mean, I've seen guys benching 5 days a week, 4 days a week, more commonly 3 days a week. I've seen the same with squats. We all know about the Smolov squat cycle where you're squatting heavy with volume 4 days a week. And I'm more opposed to a high frequency of training volume on the main lifts compared to what I once was. And you might be able to get away with that stuff in your 20s or when you're new to lifting, but it's not sustainable long term. It will lead to injuries. It will lead to not proper recovery. And this whole thing where people are like, well, it's just under eating, there's no under recovering, and it's not true. If you want to avoid the major injuries and avoid the setbacks, you have to pay attention to volume and training frequency. And this is something I've gone back and forth on over the years, but I really think more recently I've come to terms with. I personally feel that 2 days a week is the optimal bench frequency. And that may not be the case for everybody. There's always different subsets and groups of people who may thrive with 3 days. But I think for the majority of lifters, 2 bench days per week is ideal. And I would even go as far as to say 1 squat day and 1 deadlift day per week may be ideal. So this is a far cry from the way I used to program for myself and for my lifters, where it would be often 3 bench days, upwards of 2 or 3 squat days, 2 deadlift days. This stuff was very common, and we see it all the time in social media. But what that does is cuts down your recovery time, so you're not able to give it your all each training session. When you're squatting once a week or deadlifting once a week, you are going to send it. You are going to give it your absolute all because you're not touching that lift again for 7 days. So there's a bit of a psychological factor to this as well as a physical, where it's like you're going to recover better to where you can give it more effort on the next deadlift day, but you're also more excited about it because you're not going to get a shot at it for another week. And if we look at like Stuart McGill's literature, where he says the back takes 4 to 5 days to recover from severe trauma as far as lifting, then that would make sense, where you're lining up maybe 1 squat day and 1 deadlift day per week. And on one of those days, you're going to have 3 days of rest going into it. The other, you're going to have 4. So that's not even quite up to his time frame as far as what it takes for the back to recover from. But every lifter runs into back issues at some point, every single one. It's just a matter of time if you haven't faced it already. So how do we circumvent this? This is what you have to do. And I think that's where that 1 squat and 1 deadlift day per week is critical. And it's really worked wonders for me. I'll spend every single day of the week doing mobility work on my hips and core work. That's something, I could do a whole nother video on the importance of. But having that time between each of the lifts is critical to my recovery, and that's allowed me to push so far. So I think we have to really revisit this as far as what is optimal frequency. And for bench, I'm seeing more progress as far as my strength and the size I've put on, which I look considerably bigger and different than I did 6 weeks ago. And that's from the 2 bench days. Like I do the 2 bench days, very high volume, and then tons of isolation work, and it absolutely works. It blows you up. You have tons of recovery time. You don't have to really worry so much about that sore coracobrachialis issue. If any of you guys ever strained this right here or had like a lot of achiness there, way less likely to occur with 2 bench days. Have you had rotator cuff issues? Way less likely to occur with 2 bench days. All the injuries, all the chest issues, the shoulder issues, the tendonitis, way less likely to be a thing with less bench frequency. So I used to only have my very elite lifters of in that 450 plus range bench 2 days a week. That was it. I would have pretty much everybody else do 3. Now I'm almost shifting everyone to 2 days because it just works so much better. The gains are more consistent. You stay healthier. What's not to like? And I just actually had, in the last 2-3 months, I think 2 months, I had 2 of my guys competition bench 500 pounds for the first time. So my buddy David Craig and then one of my other buddies out in Wyoming, Jason Hilger, they both benched 501 in comp. So these guys, it worked very well for them with the 2 bench days. And I think both of them have a legitimate shot at 540 in competition by the end of the year. So you can't tell me the stuff doesn't work. But then I have also have guys at a lower level, and it's absolutely blowing them up as well. So, and that's not to say there's not instances where I still program 3 bench days, because I do. I have a couple guys I do 3 bench days with. But it just depends on the situation. Albeit, I would say, like I said, to recap, 2 days is probably ideal depending on how you can structure your training. So I'm not saying 3 days is automatically terrible. I do think 4 and 5 is overkill. But basically, to summarize the video, I would say 2 days is ideal in most instances, as is 1 squat and 1 deadlift day. This is not applicable to everybody. But for the most part, especially as you get older, let's say you get into your 30s and you've been lifting for 15 plus years, I would say this has more of a desired effect as far as optimizing your results. Now, if you guys like the video or you're interested in coaching, shoot me an email, prstrength1@gmail.com. I've been coaching guys for 15 years now, 13 years, something like that. 11, I don't know. I think 11 years, since 2013. Coached hundreds of guys. I can get you stronger, no doubt. Check out my Instagram as well. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. God bless you guys. I appreciate you. Keep fighting the good fight. And trust in the Lord, guys.